well, an unusual event that I witnessed a couple of times in my life that might be relevant for some of those people who've had unusual experiences with tree breaks or trees being toppled over, near them. Hey Phil, how you doing? So let me turn the camera around really quick, and then we'll get on to things. When I was young, about 7, I think it's when the first male suitor came to try to engage with Jen Jen. And it turned out he was a sun-faced person, so she wanted nothing to do with him. So she fought him off, tried to molest her. Following day, he was up in a poplar tree, trying to break the top out of it. Actually doing a good job. He split it, broke it, tossed it down. She went up after him. She was breaking limbs off on the right-hand side of the trunk as she went up. And got up to him. She grabbed hold of his ankle and pulled him out of the tree and thumped him on the ground like a sack of potatoes. And climbed back down and beat him up and forced him out of the way, forced him to leave. But I noticed in the South Carolina Bigfoot video, right after the tree break, I noticed the same behavior. One breaking the top out of a tree while being nestled in the upper branches and supporting themselves against, getting flipped out of the top of the tree when it's bouncing back and forth. And I've seen this behavior one other time. It was fall of, I want to say 2019. I was going out to the coast, down through Elkton, and stopped to relieve myself and have something to eat. And while I'm there, I hear this, crackling, something breaking next to me, just in the gully right next to the road. I was up on a back logging road. And it was this freaking Bigfoot in the top of a tree, breaking the top of the branch, the top support out of the tree, the top of the tree out. But there was also something below the creature, below the one that was up in the tree. And, he was maybe 60, 80 feet across from me, about eye level. But the tree was, probably 100 foot tall, be my guess. I think it was big poplar or maple if I remember right. But there was something big. I don't know what. It was dark. It was getting on towards dusk anyway. So that was when I decided to exit, because whatever was below the tree that was getting the top broken out of it had yellow glowing eyes, and I know better than to be around anything like that. So I scrammed. So there's that little bit. Now let's talk some about the kinds of behaviors. That particular type of behavior can be defensive, it can be offensive. It just depends on the circumstances. The few times I've seen it, it seems to be because there's a squabble, like between either groups or individuals or two different species. Maybe one's hunting the other. It seems to be that sort of thing that's occurring when the tops of trees are getting broken and thrown down. So that might have been what's going on in the South Carolina thing. Anyway, so some of the things to watch for, listen for when you're trying to get close to a group, do study or do any kind of recordings. And, if you're getting resistance, pushback, there are some things to note. Like, are you hearing, it depends on what you're hearing. So are you hearing whoops? If you're hearing whoops, there's a good potential they don't want you close, especially if you've got whoops and knocks. The young ones will have a tendency to start pounding on sticks, 1, 2, 3, and then whoop. And larger adults will also do that, just single knock and then whoop. Um, that's usually, they want you out. But there are other factors too, like power knocks. You get that, sounds like a baseball bat hitting a tree, whack. That can be a warning. It could be a warning to you. It could be a warning about you. It can be a warning about something in the area that you need to stay away from. It just depends on what your circumstances are with the group and what you can read of the situation. Hey, thank you, Raymond. Or Raiden. Uh, you're thank you. Hey, Rivet. So anyway, sorry, my eyes are really bad. Um, so power knocks. Now, those are all things that will let you know that something bigger is happening. Just depends on what it is. And part of reading that is, you know, if it's a power knock, is there other sounds? You know, is there other breakage going on somewhere else? Is there a call happening in a particular direction? Is a word being said? There might be a secondary clue. These are all for the loud sounds that you might hear first, and then we'll go into the more, fine sounds that they utilize because they have multiple levels of communication. So, power knocks. Then you'll get taps or, see, no, more aggressive. You might get growls. You might get oofed at. Thank you for the hearts. If you are like sitting in one of their spots during the day and they want to occupy it and you're in it, they might growl at you to get you to move. I've had that happen more than once, and it'll be really close. They'll be within 10 feet to maybe 4 feet behind you typically. Don't freak out. Either sit and stay, depending on if you know what's behind you. If you don't know what's behind you, you might want to vamoose. Oof usually means, there's a whole family group, there's little ones close by, and dad or elder brother, or maybe even the female will oof at you, make you go away, you're too close to kids. But those aren't incredibly aggressive, actually. They are just warning you, letting you know, hey, you're too close, or I want to be there. It's your reaction. Like if you just go, oh, well, okay, Fred, I'm moving. Sorry about that. Didn't mean to sit in your spot, or didn't realize I was close to kids. My bad. They're usually really mellow. They don't, you can walk right by these things a lot of the time. In fact, you do walk right by them and don't even realize it. So let me get into some of the experiences I had with the dogmen. We're trying to get to know them over the last year-ish season. Let me do a little bit of answering here, if I can. Sorry if I murder your names, I don't mean to. Phil, Bearman was snapping branches very close, 40, 50 feet away. Yep, I can believe that. Phil, I know he wanted me to leave. Yeah, that's a good possibility. Have a nice night, Crayon. Is it Bigfoot? Isabel. Oh, hey, Isabel. Sorry, I don't speak Spanish well. I don't read it well. Phil, I had Snap Dry Top Off, did tree earlier and said, this is Oreo Bigfoot. Yeah, I can see that. Should not have done that. Yeah, sometimes they might get a little offended. So, when I was going into the Dogman area, the one that my friend had the conflict with and ended up befriending the family group, uh, the first 4 times that I went in was very interesting. They were all a little different. So the first time I went in, I accidentally scared a female with probably 2 or 3, maybe 4 little ones with her. She scented. Um, didn't mean to startle her. She was in the flats between, uh, the parking lot and the intermarsh area. So I apologized and moved past her and went and did my thing, did my little scouting trip. Found a few things, got some track evidence, that sort of thing. And on the way out, I'd gotten all the way out to the roadside where I was parked. That's when I got the power knock. I didn't get anything really before that, except, leaving. Bam! startled the heck out of me. That was fun. The second time, when I went back in, was when I got the. I didn't startle the female, she wasn't there that time. But I did have something that followed me, skirted me, second time in. And then when I got into the marsh area, I showed myself, and on the opposite side, probably 300, maybe 3.5 yards away, there came that individual, looked like a dog man, potentially, stepped out of the brush line, tree edge, whooped. And that's when I picked up a stick and went forward a little bit, maybe 300 feet, announced myself, let them know I was a runner. I was there to say hello from my friend who we mutually knew, trying to, interact in a social way that would be what they would expect from, another indigenous person if they understood the culture at all. And, explained who I was and let them know I knew his, friend. I'm looking for the person that my buddy got in a fist fight with. I want to talk to that dog man or associate with that dog man if they're interested in letting me interact with them. Left the stick, and by the time I turned around to leave, and it was maybe 5 minutes, enough time to walk up, do my thing, watch this guy standing at the edge of the tree line, and deliver my message. And he stepped back in the woods about the time I was done talking anyway. So I went back out. By the time I got to the road side, at that point, I got 2 power knocks, so I realized, oh, hey, I got friends, and then I hear 2 howls in different locations within probably quarter mile and maybe half mile. So that was interesting. And then the third time I went in is when I started having the double taps, tap tap. And that was the third time was also when I got and I was coughing a lot then, and trying to clear my throat and let them know, hey, I'm friendly. I'm back, I'm friendly. And that's when I got the voice recording, whisper behind me, I'm a friend, down in the Dogman area. So that, was very promising communication. And then that time, going out, there was multiple other little, knocks, taps, etc. from both sides of the road where I was parked, and, let me know what was needed, wanted, and there was some kana, there was brake sticks, all that stuff was going on around that same time. So those were ways I got into that group. Haven't really been back too much. Did one more foray through. Everything was really mellow. Left some trade good, thanks for letting me bug you, and here's something as a gift. And then up in Washington, I got growled at a lot up there. Got oofed at a lot up there. And it didn't really matter where I went. That just seemed to be the normal behavior for those groups. They were a little more pushy, quickly. You get too close too quick, they get kind of, what are you doing? So how you monitor an area when you determine whether or not you're within friendly territory or not? Let me go through that here in a second. Hey, Cosmic, how you doing? Hey, Isabel. I'm glad you're here, well, man. No habla español, unfortunately. But I think Cosmic knows a bit of Spanish. Oh, wow. So, while you were doing your hikes, etc., scouting for deer, small taps, that's the other thing you'll start hearing a lot of, little tiny rock taps. You might hear stick tapping, or snapping. So if you're hearing stick snapping, you've got individuals that don't trust you in that group. If you are hearing 2 taps or 3 taps, 2 taps usually means friend or dog. So it can if you've got a dog with you, it can refer to you or your dog. Or 3 taps. 3 taps means human being, person, another individual. And in those instances, you just, as you are walking through the area, you note where those particular sounds are coming from. Note if you get any unusual bird calls, don't quite sound like bird calls, because that happens a lot. And just note where those particular areas are, because if you frequent that area, you're going to be coming back to it. You'll find that those are habitual sit spots where you hear those sounds from are going to be occupied 9 times out of 10 at some point during the day, or for part of the day, most of the day, part of the night, most of the night. Just kind of depends on what they're doing in the area, what kind of foraging they're doing. If they're doing hunting, it's different than if they're doing root collection and berries or anything like that. Plant collection, small game. So when you're trying to, like, if you're trying to get into an area where they're not really receptive to you and they want you to be out of the area, there's usually a good reason. It may not be a reason that you understand. It might be because of something that they keep as a pet, because they keep some unusual stuff. In fact, if you kind of take into consideration the unusual things that people have cited throughout the United States and around the world, unusual panthers, black panthers, panthers of unusual size, large, cheetahs that are black and shouldn't be where they're at, hyenas that shouldn't be where they're at, sabers, because there have been saber-toothed tiger sightings too, all through the Southwest, for instance. So those kinds of things also have to be taken into account. If they are warning, why are they warning? Is it to get rid of you, or is it to protect you and keep something back away from you? Because there are 2 possibilities, and that's hopefully I can catch those sounds up on the hill back here where the Rojan is, because I've gotten power knocked out up on top of the first butte um, twice now. So I realize it's not about me, it's about, the thing coming up out of the gully, and it's to drive it back. It still startles the heck out of me, though. So hopefully I can catch that kind of communication, and hopefully I can catch the rustling. But if it's not a warning about something like that, then it is a warning to you. And in like Jin Jin's case, when the Gugway came onto our property, the power knock that she did was the first one I'd ever seen and heard. Oh my God, yeah, she busted a 4-inch limb chunk, about 4 foot long across the bottom of a 3-4 foot diameter poplar, and it, yeah, crack. But it was to warn me out of the area. It was to, make sure my attention was all hers, and she told me to go to the house because this thing was coming around to go around due to attack. So there's that kind of behavior that's intergroup behavior that we may not be understanding because we're not familiar with what they do inside their groups or how they communicate potentially to us. Because they do a lot of that, and they do try to accumulate. They want to see if we get it or not. And when you do learn how to respond a little bit and you get it right, they actually encourage it. They will slow stuff down for you. So anyway, let me get to a few questions. Hey, Karma, leave that alone. Okay. Okay, Phil, okay, I don't know if I can hear her taps I have. Oh, tinnitus. That really sucks, sorry. Hey, Amelia. Hello from Greece. It's about 7. Oh, wow. It's early in the morning. Awesome. Thank you for the love and kindness. Have a great day. Uh, okay, talk about the known hand gestures they're familiar with. Yeah, so there's a lot of hand talking gestures too that these individuals will communicate in. And that's something that's relevant if you're, finally getting into an area. Let me get to that in a minute. So when trying to get into an area, like if you got resistance, what I do is I'll go to where I have the first, what I would consider harsh interaction. I get a growl, I get an oof, I get a power knock, I get something that tells me I took one step too far. And I'll back down. I'll go back down the trail, 30, 40 feet, pause, cough, say hello, see if they interact poorly again. Uh, in the past, I've gotten some charging. You know, you'll hear the pop, 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 and then they'll break some branches or trees over as they are extending their arms and running downhill towards you. That usually stops in 30, 40 feet. When that happens, I back further down. I go another 80 to 100 feet. It means I'm really close to something they want protected. Now, this is up to your discretion. I am not suggesting that you do these things by any means. I do these just so I can understand the behavior and so that I can learn a little bit more about potentially how to film some of this stuff without getting hurt. So there is the event that you might get rushed at. Don't freak. Do back down, to get out of the area, because they will get up in front of you if you don't. Some of them will get very growly in front of you, and it might be so close it's not comfortable for you. So if you get too much testing, let the area rest. But if you only get like one interaction, you back down and you cough and they don't freak out, you can hang in that point, sit in that point, 20, 30 minutes. Sometimes you'll get more interactions. You'll hear more calls. One of them might come to investigate you. Juveniles have a tendency to come investigate you if you're kind of in a border area. So they'll sneak up around you. So, be still, listen. Listen for the taps, listen for the snaps. Those are your biggest clues. And they're sometimes very tiny sounds. Because the smaller the critter is, smaller little stones they'll use, that sort of thing. So the biggest thing is, give the ground if you've upset them. Don't try to push it. Um, Back down, give them space, let them come to you, and sit quietly, observe. It's kind of a tried and true method for most primate species, including humans, unless they're dangerous. If they're dangerous, they'll take that as an opportunity to hunt you. So if something gets too close and keeps sneaking up on you and you don't feel comfortable, always follow your gut instinct. If your spidey sense is going off, if you've got the grue, if you've got anything that, is telling you hairs up on the back of your neck, you need to leave, follow your basic instincts. They're good. They're there for a reason. But if you're trying to bridge the gap, you find that area where they're not reactive. And then, you stay there. You see how long you can sit there. And if they accept that, then just advance a little bit. Go maybe another 100 feet the next time. Or push it and see where they react. Because they might move over a little bit. As they forage through an area, they move through an area. So they may not always be in exactly the same spot. So sometimes you have to find them. See if you get a bad reaction. If you don't get a bad reaction, start doing more sallies through or sitting more. Seeing what kinds of interactions they'll let you listen to. Because once they start seeing you and realizing that you're there and, you're coughing and being polite and introducing yourself, hey, Bob, how you doing? They have a tendency to mellow. They they're not as reactive. They don't feel that you're a territorial invader. The only time they will still be reactive is if there is something that's dangerous in the woods with them that they are concerned that might eat you. Because those that are, Squatch, Oma, Skakam, Yaren, even the Ishka, they all guard us against, other things that are not as congenial, like the Rojin potentially. Heck, hecker, I live in Texas in a town on the border of Louisiana, and there's a big forest at the edge of town. Grandma used to interact with them in. Oh yeah, I believe that. A lot of hill years, a lot of people used to interact with them. A lot of farmers and ranchers have interacted with them, especially in this valley. Definitely not unheard of, and pretty commonly known in most parts of the United States when you start digging into that sort of thing. So once you get to a point where they will let you sit, you can either start trying to delineate where they're habitually sitting, which is a good thing to do, and you can kind of figure out where the females are compared to where the males are. Males have a tendency to go for higher ground. Females have a tendency to stay in the marshlands, lowlands, near water, etc., because of the varieties of things that they gather. They gather smaller stuff. They gather like they'll utilize skunk cabbage stalks as body soap, for instance, if they bathe, because a lot of them do. They'll gather, types of edible plants from the marshes, medicinals, that sort of thing. Whereas, the males, if they are hunters, because many of these people still live indigenously, they still, forage like Native Americans used to, and they still have those traditional values. Then the males will typically be up higher where they can see game or, where they can uh, watch over the family that's down below, that sort of thing. They act in those kinds of capacities. And it's, those extra sit spots that you might be able to delineate, you might be able to find. Don't be surprised if you find deer stands 200 feet up a tree. They're made with massive logs and, very well braced together. Somewhere I have a picture of an Oma child sitting in a tree stand like that with, I think, probably a muskrat as a pet or some sort of a little critter as a pet. Because you can see the little one and you can see the critter, and they're both on the platform. Really cool to see. In that particular family, they moved that structure around. Oh, and I wanted to say a little bit for you, Cosmic. The whole question of where the wood comes from. I've seen some, unusual things. Like when I was up in Washington, I saw an individual carrying a bundle of, old sticks that looked like driftwood. They were clean and bleached and gray and pretty solid, but it was a bigger individual. He was probably 10 feet tall, and he had probably a 4 or 5 foot diameter bundle, just a big roll of sticks. So, maybe they carried their sticks in. My native grandmother said that was a possibility because she talked to me about those sorts of structures that show up with no apparent reason for the sticks to be there because they aren't driftwood from the area, etc. And the other thing my grandmother claimed was sometimes if they didn't bring their bundle of sticks with them, they would leave them somewhere in a hidey hole, a cave, an outcropping area, someplace where they were not noticed, up a tree, etc. And then they would retrieve them when they were going to build their structure. They'd build their structure and then they would put them back wherever they had them stored. So I've seen the one. I haven't found bundles of sticks yet, though, stored anywhere. But that's a potential if my native grandmother's stories are correct, which is possible. So there's a few little behaviors that might, lead you some clues, cosmic. Okay, Jody, good evening and Happy New Year. So, glad you have a mod. Yeah, thank you, Jody. Welcome. Oh, and thank you for all the new subscribers. Welcome, guys. Kind of an informal individual. I'd rather just, get the material out there. Cosmic. I do think you're getting into a habituation situation where you live. I would guess it can turn into that if they expect to get fed by you. They were already coming into the yard before I ever got here. It took me a little while to actually confirm they were coming into the yard before I ever did anything. And it's not a habituation thing so much as it's just normal trade, what indigenous people used to do with each other when they ran across each other's tribes. If you aren't at war with each other, you trade with each other. It's just normal behavior. Hey Ben, seems like every one of them would really, really like to have a brush or a comb. Some of them do. The ones that have longer hair, like the Skunk-ook individuals, occasionally you'll find very rudimentary wooden combs. I've found that in a couple of different locations, even up in Washington, down in the redwoods. Some of them will be like a stick with a bunch of little sticks stuck in it. That's the most common thing that you'll find. Very rudimentary, very ancient looking comb. I have seen some that were a little more intricate, looked like they had been sawed, so that the teeth were, sawn in. I've never seen them waxed or anything like that, but they're usually made out of some sort of a hardwood or harder woods. And my mom used to actually buy wooden combs, and she'd take wooden combs with her wherever we camped. Anytime we realized there was one in the area, she often would leave a wooden comb for it anyway. So that was a gift that she would commonly hand out regularly. So yeah, good observation. Diana, do they acknowledge that other species of squat or subspecies of squatch? So do they explain or do they interact with them? Yeah, there is some of that going on. Guanch, when he was explaining to me his parent species, what they believe they came from, the Ishka, he described that the Deer Society people quite often, establish trade with several different kinds of other species. The Dogman, the Ishka people, Squatch people, sometimes Skookum would also trade with those groups. It's very much like indigenous behavior. It's still very much like indigenous culture. I mean, a lot of them here in this area still utilize the same old trade routes that Native Americans did. They even utilize the same original markers in most cases, or markers that resemble the same, If an old marker falls apart, they'll often replace it with another marker of the same type, or, give an equitable replacement. They'll do Squatch, feud with other types of Squatch. Yes, sometimes. I've seen areas where Sasquatch and Dogman don't get along. I've also seen, where sun-faced people and Sabe Bigfoot don't get along. Jen tossing the one out of the tree, that kind of proved to me they don't get along. So there's that sort of, good versus bad species kind of thing going on, because the Forest Brothers, they definitely defend against the red bone people like the Gugway and the, sun-faced people and Probably even face peelers, stuff like that, they would defend against. I know they warn about the more dangerous dogmen. Uh, that's pretty common. I get a power knock when that guy comes through, and they'll rock on my Jeep to wake me up like a cradle. Yay! See him go by on the riverside. Okay, I gotcha. Don't get out the dang vehicle. That freaking thing's here. So once they realize you can understand them a little bit, they start guarding and protecting you. Even natives understood that. At least some of the tribes had those kind of interactions. Other tribes, and depending on what was living around them, they were dealing with sun-faced people or some other aggressive, like duckway species or dogman species. Yeah, it wouldn't be such a good time for them. They'd have to fight those things and survive around them. I was going to go wow about the various wood types. Me and my few others think they might be portaling the wood around, or if they're carrying it, it's got to be a ninja mode at night or something. Yeah, the one I saw carrying the bundle was actually right around dusk. And he was coming down a ridge line. I don't think he expected to be seen. The only reason why I saw him is because I had the right angle, just to see some light through that canopy. Kind of outlined him on a few little clear spots. It kind of struck me because I'm like, what the heck is he doing? Why is he carrying that much firewood? And then, like, the next day or two, there was a new little structure down in the beach area, and I'm like, oh, okay, maybe that's what that was about. So that's possibly uh, relevant. I mean, they could be portaling, but I've never seen any technology. Just, I think my grandmother's stories about them hiding material or carrying it with them is probably more potential, especially if they're just a physical creature and they act like us in any way, shape, or form. We'd carry stuff or hide stuff that we wanted to use later, and we didn't want anybody to bother. We just pick it up when we wanted to use it. But uh, I don't know. There's still lore stories. Until we get some physical evidence or some film footage of that sort of behavior, it's all up in the air. And then, but I guess that they put such a high value on mobility that they carry most anything with them ever, always ready to bolt at any time. Well, yeah, there is some of that happens, but you have to understand, they live in the same areas habitually. They will travel seasonally at times for hunting or fishing. Some of these guys will send runners 50, 100 miles away to go fishing. So there's always that potential too. It might be a temporary structure that shows up once or twice a year due to trade agreements. Hey, cousin George over here, he's got 2 weeks of fishing time down here, and you let him do that, or maybe he's got a month or whatever. So those also might be old trade agreements between family groups. It can be tribal agreements. There could be quite a few possibilities. And then there's also the fact that during the darker phase of the moon, around the new moon, there's a lot more movement out of the red bone people because they have a tendency to forage similar areas, and sometimes we're allowed egress through those areas. So if you're getting different colored eye shine during the dark of the moon, say you're getting yellow or amber eye shine during the dark of the moon, and you're getting red eye shine during the full moon, you're dealing with two different cryptids. You're not dealing with a moody creature. And the reason why I say that is because Tapetum lucidum is actually a little metallic. It's crystalline structure, half bowl, little cup in the back of animals' eyes that actually have Tapetum lucidum, and it's mineral based. So it's a little hard shell that reflects light, and in particular, it catches photons and bounces photons back and forth more to enhance images, that sort of thing. So any of the photonic light spectrum, which is like all of them, they can see. which means they can also see UV on your clothing. So that will look bright to them, and they'll notice you. If you want to get rid of the UV on your clothing, throw a cup of Coca-Cola in your laundry and don't use detergent before you go out hunting. Get rid of the UV off your clothing. That way the deer won't see you, and neither will anything else. So the way eyeshine works is it's the minerals that give the color. So if they've got a high phosphorus diet, you'll have white eyeshine, for instance, like deer. If they've got a high iodine content like bear, because they eat a lot of fish, it's going to be red. If you've got, different mineralizations, high zinc, you're going to get into the blues, colors, and that sort of end of thing. Uh, so as the minerals deposit on those crystalline structures, it gives you the different colors, and usually those are genetic or diet based. The shape of the cup, depth of the cup, the focal point, how many more photons can they capture. Badger eyes, they have really deep cups, like fish eyes do. Frog eyes, if I remember right, have really deep cups, so they bounce a lot more photons around, so they get more images. Frogs, if I remember right, or toads, they actually have to slow the image down, so they've got like a just 4-second delay in their brains to compensate for all the extra light looking at stuff. So that's why sometimes they act a little slower than they should. So part of it is how the eye functions. So you're not going to have a moody animal that changes its eye color. That's not physically possible. In fact, the only known biological critter that seasonally changes their eye shine color is reindeer. They go from like yellow turquoise to aquamarine eye shine, depending on time of year and their diet. Other than that, though, whatever eye shine you have, that's what you're going to have, because that's what you genetically have. So keep that in mind when you're identifying eye shine. With the exception of diet, diet can change that a little bit. Tone-wise, put you into the ambers, put you into the reds, put you into. But keeping an idea of what kind of eye shine you're seeing at night will give you hopefully a good idea of what kind of cryptid critter you're dealing with. Also make sure it blinks. Whatever it is has to blink, or is an eye shine or something else. So if it blinks, that's one of my always look for. Blink. If it blinks, you definitely have eye shine. If you've got, too bright beams, or, too real bright things that don't blink, too unusually colored things side by side that don't blink, probably not a cryptid. That, or it's something that doesn't have eyelids, meaning it would be maybe a reptile, because snakes and lizards and stuff like that don't have eyelids, they don't blink, so their eye shine will, constantly glow. They'll be, white, yellow, into light green, that sort of thing usually. Depends. So also familiarize yourself with, the eye shine of different creatures in your area, so you can identify when you're looking at a coyote, or when you're looking at a wolf, or when you're looking at a fox, or if you're looking at a bear, or a raccoon up a tree. That way you can rule out things. If you become familiar with the eye shine, size, placement, that will help a lot. Okay, Phil, Ontario, Squatch Mike saw marbles appear from nowhere. Have you seen? Nope, never seen anything like that. Cosmic, I've seen that about portaling marbles and other objects I've heard about from other research before him. Yeah, I've never run across that here. But that doesn't mean anything. I don't know everything about all cryptids. I just know about the ones I've interacted with. Bill. Okay. Oh, cool. I'm glad you guys are striking up a conversation. Yeah, Diana, uh, glad to have you by. And glad you're here. Happy New Year. Nice to meet you. I've wanted to learn some very badly, and I'm happy to have found you. Glad you're here. Appreciate that. Hey, for Gravy, JB, for JBB. uh, okay, Cosmic. There was a term called devil monkeys. Are those the Gugway? And do they have red eyes? You know, I've heard that term too. Originally, I heard that from a veteran who claimed that it was one of the terms that they used for the rock monkey was devil monkey. He said, though, some of the devil monkeys were smaller and brown instead of larger and black. Um, I've never run across them personally. I don't have any. Well, Grandma said there were several different kinds of booger people. The devil monkey might be a type of booger person. The booger people have a ruff, you know, kind of like I think mandrills do. They have a big ruff of fur, a little longer around their neck, shoulder area. And some of the descriptions that I've been told about, they have a ruff, and some of them have a snout with like sharp little teeth, dog-like teeth. But I've never seen one personally. But my guess might be cousin to the boogers because they seem similar, and that's kind of the same genre. You know, the other thing is their limb hair, you know, on their arms and legs is usually shorter than the rest of the hair on their body. Um, they have primate-like hands and feet, typically. At least the one I saw was like that. That was the Gugway's mother. She was a booger person. They aren't overly tall, though. They're like 5.5 feet. At least the one I saw seemed to be shorter, you know. So I don't know if they're a really large species. But that would be potentially, you know, part of the booger family line of stuff, or that branch of things, because it seems like there are some very similar characteristics in common hair patterning and body shaping with some of these species. So they kind of fall within certain categories. It's kind of why I'm thinking they're maybe different species, not just different races, but, you know, like the chimpanzee is not a gorilla is not a macaque is not a simian, etc. You know, different species within the overall genome kind of thing. Hey Phil, wives I've seen areas torn up as from battle, but not elongated feet, large wolf tracks, and large sternum freshly killed, and was recovered sternum flat and large. Huh. That's interesting. That sounds like two different bigger things don't like each other. Okay, Jody, I had a question. Jen was an Oma and her mate was Squatch. Yes, that is correct, Jody. What would their offspring be called? Is there a common for different species to have offspring? Yeah, they can crossbreed with us. They can crossbreed with each other for the most part, because there are, you know, historic lore about different people within native tribes being half-breeds. And there are also stories from other parts of the world. So yeah, I've seen that sort of thing. So they're probably all just cousin species with each other. So unless it's some sort of parasitic pregnancy or you know, mule situation where the two species just can't mate, then there's a good chance, you know, that offspring can be produced between any and or all of these different critters. Because you know, we are the same species and there are multiple races of us and we can all reproduce for the most part, with rare exception. And I'm not sure. Uh, they may call the ones that are more, chimpanzee-like in the face, they may consider them Oma, but uh, from what I understand, from the way Oma and Jinjin describe stuff, it's the female's line that is considered the tribal line. So because Jinjin was Oma, then her children would be automatically considered Oma before they would be considered Squatch, is my understanding of it. But that's, a very old way, it's a very tribal way, it's marriage practice ways, it kind of comes from different countries as well. You adopt one specific line over another. Ben, just occurred to me that when you have a 4 foot, 5 foot long arm, a small bundle to them looks like an entire. Yeah, yeah. Well, and that is exactly the case because they do have much larger arms than us, so they can carry a heck of a lot more. They can pick up big critters too, pretty easily, and just walk off with them. That the dog man that killed the bear, the bear had to have been scraping 485, 520, and yeah, it picked it the heck up and walked off with it. So yeah, if they could pick up that kind of weight and walk off with it, and whatever they size bundle they can equate with material, they can probably haul it as long as they don't get it caught on stuff. So I saw a cylindrical craft, and I put long pewter color. I asked Sabe what it was. He answered mothership. Huh. When I asked Jinjin if she understood what airplanes or spaceships were, she thought they were things from the past, except that she could still see them. So she had stories and lore about them, but she had never been in one. When I asked Guanch about that sort of thing, he'd never been in one. I mean, there might be other species from other planets. I have no idea that may come here. We don't know what comes here. So there might be something from off planet. I don't know. I've never seen anything technologically advanced with any of the cryptids I've interacted with. Everything I've interacted with seems to be living in a very naturalistic way, in a very, native indigenous manner, foraging for their food daily, interacting with their families, taking care of their families, trading with each other, trading with you if you're able to figure it out, um, warning each other. They seem to have a very sedentary life, actually, in a lot of ways. Naturalistic. Okay, Ben, I'm beginning to think that Coca-Cola is right up there with coat hanger in terms of having more unintended uses and intended uses. Yeah, very true. Oh, clean Pepsi. Yeah, Pepsi will clean toilets too. Definitely cleans battery out stuff, cables too. Okay. Ben, so many questions about them. Wondering if they have any brain vision refresh rate, same as ours. About 60 hertz. Dogs are at about 80 hertz, something like that. Yeah, I would have a tendency to think that their brain refresh rate's actually a little bit quicker than ours. Because I've been in a couple of incidences where I was trying to keep up with tapping communications, and they ended up moving so fast my brains and my ears couldn't keep up, and I had to have them slow it down for me so I could try to understand what was being tapped. And then it made them a little ADD, and they just kind of shorthanded it for me because I was stupid. So yeah, I don't think our brains process as quick as theirs do. And besides, if they can move like the Flash, I mean, if they got burst speed that makes them blur when they run away from you, because I've noticed that a lot in my life. Then their brain has to keep up with that inertia. You know, it'd be like a woodpecker slamming its head into a tree to forage. And your brain has to be cushioned against that sort of inertial uh, internal issue because you can snap your brain stem if your brain wobbles around in your skull too much. So if they run like that, they've got to have some sort of really quick processing speed because how else could they run like that? We've clocked them at 80 miles an hour and you don't hardly see them when they're running at a blur. How fast did they really run? Their bean processor up here has to be moving pretty quick. Diana, do you know anything about small, round, white orbs? I video of some on my porch. Some got in my front door wall when I stepped out. One behind, floating around behind me. I don't know much about them. They do seem to be a little bit on the sentient side, at least their movements suggest that sort of thing. Some cultures consider them, fairies. Some consider them off-world beings. Some consider them to be energy beings. I haven't had enough interactions with orbs to really know much about them, other than that they evidently exist because people keep seeing them. And if it's common phenomena, then, it's common phenomena. So, have you seen Ontario Squatch, Mike's inhabited Sabe habituated Sabe pigs? NEF is one creepy looking Sabe. He has very black skin. He has Sabe or other. Yeah, I've seen that stuff. I'm not real sure on what I'm seeing with that. Cosmic. So much about orbs. Various people or cryptids traveling by orb. Oh, I didn't know that. Like I said, I've not really had many interactions with orbs throughout my life. I got Cosmic look out to see if they change shape. Sometimes they make tubular shapes or what's called rods and skyfish. Oh, okay. Okay, then night photo of some kind of primate from Florida. Sure looks more like a monkey than a human, but not any known monkey or ape. I think that photo has eye shine too. Forgot what color. Yeah, a lot of these people actually do look very primate-like. But the thing is their actions are far more sophisticated than your average primate. They use language. They have religion. They teach their children. They build traps. They build tools. They trade. They've got way too many human characteristics for what they look like. And that's one of those modern concepts. We're used to putting it in, human category or ape category. We don't have a category for ape planet. These guys actually have their own set of, mannerisms that are like us, and their body structure is still ape-like. So, we may have to broaden our perspective a little bit in our scientific fields. And we may have to include other species that we haven't previously contacted or known about, or maybe we did know about them and just ignored that, those stories, those lores, that information. Because natives, we understand that they may not look like people, but they act like people. That's why we call them forest brothers, and why we don't call the ones that don't act like forest brothers in our best interest. They're red bone. They're going to eat you. You know the difference. If you don't know the difference, you're in deep doo-doo because you might camp in the wrong spot. Gugway always have, hey dog, what are you doing? Fifi. Cosmic, I remember that photo from Florida. That looks legit. Gugway, possibly. Gugway, from what I understand, are always born bald. They don't grow any hair on their heads. They remain bald throughout their lives. In the several species of them that I've run across in my life, they've all been bald and male. I haven't found a female yet. But there might be other species of Gugway. It just would depend on the local native lore. That's your best bet for identifying other species of those sorts of cryptids. Who, I believe, places or monuments, earthworks with devil in their title is often related to local wild man, woodworks, etc. Devil's quiet burial chamber. Huh, it's interesting. I know that a lot of booger roads up here. They usually end up in dead ending in hollows or out in little marshes or swamps. Okay. Just checking to see if there are any more questions for me. So let me get back to what I was saying. So identifying the sit spots where they're at in their territories, that helps a lot, especially if you're trying to either get sound recordings or interactions with them or videos of them. And also once you start, realizing where they habitually make sounds from, you can look for the blinds that they're sitting in or the little sit spots that they're sitting in. You might be able to find avenues or angles that you can, get pictures straight into those areas, or maybe you can uh, get vocalizations from some areas that you may not be aware of currently. But keep in mind, if the creature that is around you is not responsive to backing down when you cough at them or clear your throat at them, they're probably red bone. They're probably not good. They'll have a tendency not to tap at you as much. They will warn about you more. They will snap sticks more. And then, just learning which ones snap sticks. Those are the ones that might be a little more aggressive with you. If they're tapping at you, you're probably fine. Um, some of the other things I've done, I've followed individuals, I've tracked individuals until, they let me see them or encouraged me to follow laid down tracks so I could see them, leading me to them. But that's, from individuals that get a little more friendly with you or a little more used to seeing you around. And you don't have to feed them or do anything to them to uh, get them to realize you're friendly. You just have to show up, uh, be visible for them, uh, remind them that you're there so you don't startle them. And once they get used to you being there and you're not startling them and they know you're there, then they have a tendency to relax more. They'll get closer to you. You can get closer to more important areas. You can get closer to bed systems. You can get closer to foraging areas. You can get closer to the young. You can get to interaction points where they will actually do vocalizations for you closer by, talk to you or talk towards you, about you, etc. And you might learn some of their intergroup behavior enough to like locate where the kids play. When you hear the kids playing off in the distance and you're hearing children laughing out in the woods, it's usually groups of cryptid children playing together. I've heard that many times in the redwoods. I've heard that in the sequoias. I've heard that in the forests up here, some of the rivers up here. So that's not uncommon behavior. It's usually when the family group has a large number of children, though. Has to be 20, 30 kids. And then they'll, be playing all together. Class is out, recess time, maybe they're catching lunch, whatever. And, they also train their children that way. They will let their children have playtime, but they also have chore time during the playtime. And maybe they get to play in the water, but they also have to catch fish. I know of an area like that. But again, even going into areas like that are more private, where they are doing their own, survival, daily behaviors, you'll get to a point where they will let you get closer. They'll let you hear more. They will let you maybe see some interactions, or maybe they'll start interacting with you. You just have to be patient. You have to take your time, and you have to let them lead you. If you get too pushy, they'll go quiet. They'll disappear from you. They'll withdraw. So those potentials. Sticks. We don't see the two young Sasquatch. We heard them on each side of camp, whooping for hours. Yeah, they'll do that. Ben looks really awesome. Okay. Hey Phil. Ask why. She identified 20 types of Bigfoot and 4 different dogmen. Those are just the ones I've been around so far. I'd like to be able to identify more of them, but yeah, maybe I can find a few more before my time's up on this plane. Okay. So, I guess the only other potentials is there are certain instances where they're more prone to use like animal calls, dog calls, bird calls, owl calls in the middle of the day on the ground. And that's usually where they are getting together in big groups. Usually they do that 2, 3, 4 in the afternoon, depending on the time of year. It's their final meal time of the day. So when you come into an area during that kind of late afternoon, warm part of the day, and you get a lot of different kinds of animal calls that shouldn't be all together in the same location, or just don't quite sound right. You're usually dealing with a group getting together for their final evening meal. So all of the different cryptids from the family group will meet, usually in one area. They wash their food, they prepare their food, they share it, they divvy it up. A lot of their stuff they eat raw, unless they're doing some sort of special occasion, like a wedding feast or birth feast, and they'll have a little bit different thing going on. They'll usually cook food, or for certain kind of religious practices, they'll cook food. But normally, they just share the food equally, and it's cleaned, it's parted up, and they consume it as a group. So there's that kind of potential behavior. If you can identify that, that gives you an opportunity where you can, maybe set up a trade point or a gifting point, and you might be able to catch some footage of that kind of late afternoon action. And then usually after that, they have a tendency to go sit, sun, they'll relax, digest, be mellow, go meditate, because it's late afternoon, sundown, going from the warm part of the day to the cooler part of the day is when Jen would sit and she'd meditate and munch the birds and watch the sun go down. So that's kind of I've noticed over the years, it's kind of a standard behavior for some of these groups. So it's something they do regularly enough that you can identify the areas they do it in. You can probably get some good interactions or some potential recordings of that sort of thing going on. It would be those kinds of areas, where you're not too intruding. You're not in their bed system, for instance. You're in some place where they communally get together. but they wouldn't feel threatened if you were trying to record them. And we're more likelihood of being able to catch some sort of open behavior, outwardly seen within the world. So it's learning how to map areas so you can figure out where those positions are. And when you have that kind of an area happening, you're going to be finding it's going to be by a river, it's going to be a stream, or a lake edge, and then where they get together to eat, it's going to be really close, if not at the water. And you'll find the remnants of the wash baskets. You'll find remnants of the food bowls or rolls and the food balls, because they'll unwrap the food items, they'll wash them, clean them, and there'll be 3, 4, 5 people doing that same behavior. So you'll find a whole bunch of discarded material. Sometimes you can even find little tools, scrapers, food items, stuff that's wilted too much and they don't want to eat it, or something got left behind. Occasionally you'll find the little moss ball sponges that they use to give themselves moisture with. Those will be discarded or left behind by accident. So whenever I find that kind of, vines all together, you've got a bunch of terrestrial ivy, honeysuckle, or sometimes you'll even find elm bark or alder bark in strips. Then you've got some sort of, and the wrapping materials. They'll wrap food items up and put them on bark plats, or they'll put big leaves around them. Sword fern, prawns are one of the typical things that they'll wrap a duck or a fish with. I've also seen maple leaves used to wrap a squirrel with, or a little critter like a frog or a bird with, or a mouse with. So they always also have a lot of extra material that's going to be with the discarded, food bowl or roll, ball or roll. God, tired. And it helps you delineate what you're looking at the water's edge. It'll help you delineate what you're going to be able to pick up, for evidence. The other thing you'll typically find are little cross sticks that have notches at either end, that they hold their little circular baskets, their pine baskets open with. So you'll find some tools. And if you can find those kinds of things consistently, and we'll be able to qualify a pattern of behavior. Hey, old fat and slow. Hello, everyone. I'm a friend from Mount Mitchell area, New York, MC Mountains. Hope you are well. Yeah, we are. Glad you're here. Tree breaks and visual cues. When you see tree breaks, they see exactly where you are. Yeah, that's true, Phil. All right. So, let me think if there are any other. Well, there's always the 3 taps. That always says that you're human. Sometimes the power of the snap or the tap also is an indication of how large the individual is. I went over that. Definitely make sure you know what your eye shine is, because if you're messing around with these things at night, you need to make sure you know what you're messing around with. At least identify by eye shine, hopefully, that you're dealing with the same critter instead of 2 different critters. Be wary of certain kinds of, too much whooping, too much stuff being broken, things being thrown at you. All that behavior is, they're incredibly uncomfortable with you. And just, tone yourself back down a little bit. Let them have space. That'll mellow out. And even if you come across a group, like I did, what was it, over by where my dad's campsite was? Big snapstick and head of dad's uh, path back to his camp. In that video, I walked through a group, small group, family group, mom, dad, maybe another older sibling, brother, sister, or something, and probably 2 or maybe 3 little ones, so 5 or 6 individuals. And, when I panned up, they just kind of stepped back, receded, sat down. I walked by. I spent maybe 2.5 minutes in the area before they got really uncomfortable and kind of oofed at me to get moving. And that's when I walked back out of the area. So that's pretty common behavior. You'll actually come across that more than you not even realize that you're getting oofed at because the sounds are sometimes small. Yeah. You'll hardly hear it. So watch, listen, and try to triangulate where your sit spots are compared to where your sounds are. That'll help you a lot. But the majority of it, they'll let you know pretty quickly. And if you have an incident where you've startled a female and they scent, there's also the possibility that her mate might like growl from somewhere, and it'll be loud. It'll be more like a roar, more like a lion roar than like a bear growl or anything. You'll definitely feel it if you're too close. It will make your bones rattle or make you feel like your organs are shaking in your skeleton. And I usually just exit, when that happens, because I know I've disturbed him in addition to her. Puts me in a bad situation. So I'll leave that kind of an area and not try to push it. You can go back a couple days later. Just make sure you don't make the same mistake. They're pretty forgiving overall. You might get a little more curiosity behavior after something like that, though. The female will start tapping at you or maybe throwing pea gravel at you to let you know, hey, you're too close to me and the baby. And, her older children or her siblings that might be still in the area will start investigating you. And they'll usually skirt you, follow you, escort you. Sometimes they'll stand up and look at you from a ridgeline, or they'll look at you from a high point, or a bluff point, or they'll look at you from an echo bowl. But they'll usually either peek out from behind something or stand up, look over bushes, and if they're following you, they'll be along on the brush line, or they'll follow water if you happen to be next to a river, or they'll follow the other side. It's rare that they will follow you in the trees. It's usually on the ground. So keep that sort of thing in mind, especially if you're, trying to do any kind of interactive research where you're sitting in the area for a prolonged time, sitting in one of their group areas. You make note, listen to what goes on around you. It's important. Okay. All part of they seem very friendly, but they always surround me. That makes me nervous. Should I be nervous? Surrounding is not a behavior I've experienced very often. I have experienced it a couple of times, but it's always been because there's been an issue. Somebody's made a mistake in the area. They've offended the particular Bigfoot in that area. Or I stepped into an area where I got surrounded by stuff I couldn't even flip and see because it was dark as the moon. And yeah, no, I wouldn't trust that personally. And that's just my base instinct. You can do as you please. You can do what you feel comfortable with. But for me, that would be gotta go. But that's just me. I would, cough, snap twice. Both of those mean that you're not going to attack. Cough means you're not going to attack. Snap twice means you're a friend. Yeah, you're right, Sticks. I'll always be nervous. They like people, the good ones and the bad ones. Yeah, very true. I was surrounded last fall. No bucks came in when they show up. Yeah, I bet they don't feel. Probably scare the heck out of them. Uh, dozens of individuals. Yeah, if you're going into a good-sized family groups area to hunt, you might have, they might surround you pretty regularly. Maybe try leaving something for them. Leave part of the catch behind, or leave them something may like. Okay, Cosmic, have you heard of birthing huts? I wonder if they come in various designs. Yeah. I know of one Skookum woman who acts kind of like a midwife, and she had a birthing hut. House was cut apart this last fall. Uh, it has a couple of stone elements in it, and it looks like kind of a big seating area. And the branches were sculpted in such a way that, a birthing woman could support themselves in the area, like it was birthing chair. And so that's been partially destroyed. So yeah, I have found a couple of those, and there's another set down by the Willamette River. It's a root system that's very definitely sculpted as a birthing chair, but you squat at that one. It doesn't have a seat. And I know of one other birthing stone down in the Santiam River. It's definitely been carved for a birthing stone. That's one Uncle Long told me about, and it's potentially incredibly old, several hundred pounds, and been in the same part of the river forever. So there are different variations of that sort of thing, and they do have people who function as midwives. I think Bear Woman might be something like that as well. Old part, they always get me with the twig break a small twig, let them know exactly where I am, and to show I'm not hiding or advancing on them. I say hello. They say they come as a friend, and then yeah. Yeah, they have a tendency to be about as mellow as you were. If you are mellow, they are mellow. Unless they're red bone people. And it's not that they aren't mellow, but they're far too curious. They like to get far too close. And they have a tendency not to take no for an answer once they get their hands on you. Alrighty, I'm trying to think if there was anything else I wanted to cover. Or if there was any peculiar behavior that I ran across that was a regular communication. I don't think so. I think I've gotten it all. And giving you hopefully a little bit of an outline. Yeah. Let me think if there are any other areas. I've done the whole following individuals. I've done the whole coughing to get them to relax. I've done the hey tapping, I'm a friend. But even, with all that kind of effort, unless you've got a really active group that doesn't mind being heard, you may not get a lot of results, vocalizations, that sort of thing. So if you do happen to have a really active group that likes to communicate, please get recordings. The more recordings, vocalizations, language use, etc., the more kind of reference points we can start accumulating on them. And maybe we can start, cross-identifying which species are which and which ones act which way. Kind of build some sort of a framework to hopefully go forward with. Because there's a lot of modern myth. There's a lot of conjecture. There's a lot of hypotheses. There's a lot of potential information, but no real way of completely pinning anything down because we don't have, body of reference material. So we're going to have to build the framework. We'll have to come up with that body reference ourselves. Can anyone tell me more about the booger people? My old folks around here only called them wood boogers, so I go with that. Wood boogers are actually potentially particular species within the Bigfoot cryptid populations. How big were your boogers? The ones up here are pretty short, and they're usually less than 6 foot in height, and ranging more around 5.5 foot. And they're kind of rusty, chocolatey brown to dark-ish into black. Most of them seem to be in the brown chocolate color range. Okay, where you're at, how far they are very human-like, 6 to 7.5 feet tall with white blue eye shine. Oh, really? Oh, wow. That's amazing. So they're more like the wild men. Cool. I think, yeah, that's interesting. Really cool. That's the other thing, some of this, it's lore, it's mythology, it's folklore, however you want to look at it. It's cultural history, indigenous, whoever happened to be indigenous in the area's lore, and their particular equations to things. It's good to collect references as to name and type because there might be the same name for multiple types of creature, and that's something to consider, and something that's going to have to be dealt with, handled within the community as large, at large when we're doing our research, because we'll have to pin down, is that booger a little bit more human? Do they have human features? Do they have ape feet? Do they have human feet? Do they have people hands? Do they have ape hands? Do they have long hair on their heads? What kind of characteristics? How far separated are they from other descriptions of boogers? Because I do think that, like Bigfoot, booger is probably come to be a more in general term to a degree. So there might be various creatures out there all with the same name but have completely different body structures and potentially completely different behaviors. I know that a lot of the booger people from the south and from back east, southeast, seem to have a more human body structure, where the boogers out here seem to have more of a primate-like body structure. So I think trying to sort out which booger you got in the area might be a good idea, because it seems like there's some variation. Yes, Phil. Wolverines, just like Badger, have a really bright eye shine. They bounce a lot of photons around in their eyeballs. Oh yeah, by the way, I smile when you mention boogers, nickname for Boggy's snout. Oh, right on him. Um, that's cool. Because there's also a lot of pioneer names too. A lot of them haven't stuck around, and there've been names given to them by or given to various species by French trappers, by Um, what was it? The other ones that had a lot of interactions with them were the people that were down on the Louisiana River, Mississippi River, and the flatboats, paddle boats, that sort of thing. There are quite a few interactions historically known along that river and that set of waterways, and there's some lakes like St. Louis and that region, the rivers there. They've got a lot of interactions with all kinds of cryptids. Great Lakes area, there's a ton of interactions up in those areas. So there's also a lot of evidence to suggest there are prime areas to have interactions, and those names have a tendency to go along with the area. So something we got to sort out. I like Yahweh and Sabe. Yeah, I kind of like that too, Bill. Joyce, we have both here. Do they interbreed? Yes, there is a possibility that they can interbreed. Yeah, they are the hide and seek champs. That's very true, Sticks. Yeah, expert level, definitely. Okay, well, part the ones I'm calling boogers have light skin color. Yeah, wild men have light skin color, and so do the sun-faced people. Do they have body hair all over their bodies, old part, or do they have, intermittent or sporadic hair, or are they only partially haired? Because those are some other identifiers. Because if they're a sun-faced person, they'll probably have short black body hair all over, but they'll have skin kind of like us too, maybe a sunburnt person. If they're a wild man like Uncle Ong, they'll have our skin tone, no sunburn, maybe a bit of tan color to it because they're outdoors-ish. And they'll be primate-like, waist down, completely covered in hair with primate feet, and waist up. They look far more human with human hands and a very human facial structure, but they'll still have both the nictating membranes and, the tapetum lucidum in the backs of their eyes. And actually, I think Uncle Long said he had blue eye shine or blue-white eye shine. I thought it was red, but now that you mention that, I think he actually said it was blue-white. Because I can't remember if I ever saw him with his brights on, so to speak. So maybe more out on that one. Sticks, the ones with 3 toes or 6 fingers on each hand are, well, 3 toes I think is a far more archaic creature. I think it's still probably part of the cryptid into Bigfoot. But the 6 toes and 6 fingers are typically giants. They're what you call the Niflheim species, supposedly. And they all have 6 fingers, 6 toes. There are some tracks up here in the northwest that are 3-toed. But the tracks that I found here, only one looks like a Bigfoot, like primate foot. The other one looks like a really bizarre flat-footed lizard track of some kind. The skin structure, because I found it in a pretty clayed out area, nice little spring area that was had really fine clay around it, so it had a real good pattern print from it. It was up in Washington, and I got pictures of it. So it was a track about 9, maybe 10 inches in length. It had very much a very narrow foot overall, maybe 4 inches at the widest, and heel was probably 2, maybe a little wider. And the skin structure seemed to be like almost like the way a chicken track is. They have that kind of bumpy flesh, except there was also like scaling or some sort of callousing like birds get or have. That didn't look familiar to me as anything I've ever seen before, so I couldn't place the track to anything because, well, As far as I know, I've never seen anything like that. So I didn't know quite much to think of that. I don't know what your three-toed tracks look like, if they look more like, some sort of bird or lizard, or if they look more like some sort of primate. Hey, Lauren. I think I like a boogeyman from Middle English, word for monster. Yeah, yeah, and it makes me wonder the whole boogeyman symbol, the warning symbol, and the two stones and a stick. Uh, Kind of makes me wonder if the old stories, the old nursery rhymes, might have some bearing. Because that, not just to scare the kids, but to warn the kids. Okay. Phil, seriously, you must see Ontario Squatch. Nah, photo. What the fuck is that? Yeah, if I remember, I looked at that one, and to me, it looked more like a sculpture. Could be wrong, but it doesn't look like anything I've seen before. Looks more like a mask or a sculpture or something odd. Hmm. I'm not convinced. I'm not sold. Okay, Ben, better to try introduction alone or in pairs or more. Um, I usually go in alone, but I've seen, small family groups of natives going into the woods to say hi. I've seen couples go in to say hi. Typically, if you go with a female partner, they'll think that you're married. If it's a family group that goes in to say hi, have a tendency to be a little more receptive. Um, but they'll also accept a single individual, male or female, saying hi. They don't seem to get too bent out of shape about any of it. I mean, you can walk through their territories all you want for the most part. It's just depending on what you do in the area, depends on how rude they get, or what you're intending on doing might also cause some conflict. Uh, but just being able to read some basic signs, know what's around you, and know when you cross the line, yeah, it can keep you healthy, happy, and safe, and still you can do what you want to do. Okay, gotta check that side out. Tell them safe, just bona fide, beautiful no house, experience encounters, no fear. Hey, synthetic nature. Hello from the other evening. Responded to a comment I had made regarding sightings of Sabe that are seen in conjunction with UFOs. Yep. God, so hard to leave. Um, Synthetic. I say that some of the Sabe that are seen in our near UFO crafts are Sabe that are genetically engineered. Uh, from what I understand, our government does not have the technology to genetically engineer them, clone them, or do anything with them really. It's just what I've been told about the situation. I've been point blank told those sorts of things by people in the know. So if somebody's gonna come crawling out of the woodwork and go, oh no, we can't clone you guys. Uh, no, we can't make you do anything because we don't have the genetic tech to do it. I would tend to believe those kind of people. But I don't know from first-hand experience. I've never been in a lab. I just know what I've been told. And nothing really has indicated to me that they are in any way created. There are too many stories that go way back too far in history to think that they are in any way modern creation. And with the peculiar nature of their genetics, I mean, they can barely even figure out what they are with DNA tests. I really don't think they have the ability to clone them, or maybe they can do medical experiments on them if they catch them. But other than that, I don't think they can clone them. I've been told that too many times that we can't. I mean, you're welcome to have any kind of theories and what have you want. It's just, that's what I've been told. Okay, but I think a variation that may be very real. Okay, synthetic. You said that it simply isn't true because you talk to people within the high security clearances told you Sabe cannot be cloned. Yeah, I've been told that more than once. I was disappointed in the response for a couple of reasons. First, when you replied something that you were told by a defense contractor, you didn't elaborate on the specific biological mechanisms that prevented them from being cloned. Well, it's because they didn't give me that information. I can venture a guess it's because of their asexual nature. They're prone to potentially being hermaphroditic a lot of the time, or counterflipped in their genetics. You know, male, female, you expressed one way and look the other way. So I don't know as our tech is prepared for that level of ancient genetics. Um, we only finished doing the human genome, what, 15 years ago? And it's only been within the last 20, 25 years that we've done anything with genetics to any degree. You know, we've done the feline genome, we've done equine genome, canine genome, us. But that's all brand new. That's all brand new tech. It's all brand new information. It's all brand new ideology. Uh, there's stories about Sasquatch and all these creatures that go far, far back in history. Okay. Synthetic, assuming what you heard and repeated is true, it would lend more credibility to your point if you had asked your source to explain exactly why or how the knows that to be true. Well, if you don't have the classification to ask the question, you don't ask the question. If you don't know if you have the classification to ask the question, you keep your mouth shut. That's how that works. I'm sure that's unfamiliar to people who've not been in the military or been around military people or had military in their lives forever. There are just some questions you don't ask. If they don't want to volunteer the information, you don't have a legal right to ask the information. So sometimes you don't have an answer, and you never will. That's the way confidentiality works. Sorry, not my fault. It's the way the game's played. Second, I never say anything about the infallibilities of the military titles that they're cloning engineering or counterfeit. Sabe, the same entities that engineered humanity. Well, I don't think anybody's engineered humanity either, and that's my own personal opinion. There's too much lore that states that we've always been here. You know, we've been invaded a couple of times. We've had some pretty nasty extraterrestrial enemies, and some of them are still here, like the dragon people. You know, lizard man, whatever you want to call that. I don't have all the answers that I can tell you. Uh, Sorry if my opinion is different. Um, like I said, you may have different experiences. You may have different knowledge than me. And that's okay. You know, that's what this is about. Putting our heads together and coming up with one solid answer, regardless of what other kinds of material might be laying around on the ground, so to speak. Well, the fallen angels and the Anunnaki and that sort of thing, you know, the Niflheim are actually very much more like genies, the jinn, that sort of thing. And the Niflheim are also supposedly all six-toed and six-fingered. There are humans with polydactylism, uh, condition that allows you to have more fingers and toes than you're supposed to. So I would say that would be probably the area of cryptid that Niflheims fell into, but it's not what Bigfoot are. Bigfoot are older than those cryptids, potentially. But then, I don't know. I'm not an expert on Niflheim. Never seen one. Never had an experience with one. Haven't found a six-toed print, as far as I'm aware. Found one that was probably carrying a rock. Made it look like it had six toes. But I haven't run across that sort of thing myself, so I can't really speak about it. So, here's one for you, synthetic nature. When you get into the Vedic texts and the number of humanoid species that are cataloged within its pages, according to the Vedic texts, the Brahmana, or Parmayana, anyway, whichever one of the texts, recites there are 400,000 different species of humanoid on this planet. That's far more species than the, 160 that we recognize now, or 12, whichever end of the spectrum you want to look at. So I would assume with 400,000 supposed human species here on the planet, there's a lot of wiggle room. Maybe the Anunnaki are just more of that wiggle room. They may be from off planet, they may not. I really seriously don't think that a lot of people that are pushing out that information and talking about anything irrelevant. I mean, I've looked into some of those ancient texts myself. I have a different opinion. I mean, like what? We all have an opinion. Who cares? Uh, just until it's proven in any way, shape, or form, it's still going to be an opinion, still going to be a theory, just going to be a difference. Yeah, my email address is northwestnativefactory@yahoo.com. Go ahead and email me. I'd love to see it, but a lot of the stuff that I've seen on that sort of documentary shows that go into those details, especially with the Syro-Babylonian stuff, you know, they don't even go back to the end of the last ice age. Their culture's only, what, 1,800 years old? 2,600 years old? Um, and they're very localized. They're in a very small section of the world. So maybe for their culture, they did have a lot of influence from other people, but I just don't see it. And yeah, you feed your horse oats when you've gone a long ride. Any farmer knows that. I think some of the iconography that people are citing think that they are talking about something from outer space or extraterrestrial, just haven't had any life experience on a farm and don't know what a grain bag is, for instance, or what a seed bag is when you're spreading seed, or a basket is. It's, mindset, difference between familiarity with nature and familiarity with concrete. If you have too much familiarity with concrete, you don't have very much familiarity with what Earth is like, unfortunately. That's why it's easy to make big hypotheses without being able to put any backing to it. And that sort of Assyro-Babylonian stuff seems to be that nature to me because I've done some reading, and it just doesn't equate for me. It doesn't add up. You know, the timeline's off. They're too new a culture. Just too many things don't add for me in that one. We're too. We go back too far. I mean, my Native Americans culture on the Maya side goes back to 30,000 years BCE, or roughly 28,000. And my Sioux side goes back 20,000 BCE, 19, 18,000 BCE. So my lore tells me the Native American culture is older than the Syro-Babylonian culture is. Eh. Okay, Phil. Sasquatch have unique DNA. The father nuclei is very complex. The word is, yeah, that's what Uncle Ong said too. They should not be able to live with this DNA structure. Yeah, no kidding. There's a lot of peculiarities about their DNA. Um, Platypus of the monkey world. They're peculiar. I mean, from just the characteristics that I've seen expressed. The hair structure. Some of them have very mink-like pelts and not like primates at all. Some have very dog-human hair structure, not like it should be. A lot of them have nictating membranes in their eyes. Primates don't have that typically. We used to. That's what this little bump is in the corner of your eye here. That's what's left over of your nictating membrane. So there are some peculiarities with them. The fact that, the dogmen have dog feet and have raccoon-like hands. What the heck? You've got the wild man who have primate feet and human hands. Yeah, I can see why people would think they're lab created because of the peculiar structure, but if they are a primordial being, we have no idea what they may have looked like in order to survive in the terrain that they survived in. These creatures have probably been here since forests, the average tree size was 30 foot in diameter and 500 feet tall. They grew up and lived and were created in a far different environment than what we've come about around in the last 1.5 million years. When you're looking at bedrock in this state that is 145 million years old and has footprints in it from Bigfoot, kind of tells me they've been here for a while. Far longer than the Syro-Babylonian culture's even been around. Just my opinion, though. Okay. Cute. Nice observation there. Okay, Phil. Sasquatch should always answer truthfully. That is my experience. Uh, no, if you got something lying to you, you might want to be careful what you're dealing with. Where when I usually ask the different groups, what tribe are they, they'll answer me. Maybe it's just the nature of the question. Yeah. Unfortunately, they go back too far in history for that, Phil. You see, stories of the Niflheim giants, and that sort of stuff in modern religion only goes back 6,000 years. When you can find footprints in bedrock 145 million years old, the mythology doesn't match for me. You have your right to your opinion. I don't know, sometimes I feel like they tell you what they think you want to hear. Bart, be careful of that. World of Bigfoot Central, Venera, Ramiana, Bigfoots, the Rama fight, Ramayana, and his Niflheim troops. Yeah, exactly. They were on the other side. Yeah, that's so correct. Wow, world of Bigfoot. Okay, Phil. Telekinesis, telepathy, invisibility, run 80 miles an hour, sound superhuman at least. Yeah. Well, depending on how far back in history they go, what were they hunting originally? I don't think they were originally hunting deer. I don't think they were originally hunting. I mean, let's see, what was around 145 million years ago? So you had Allosaurus. It was the end of the Jurassic period. It was right before the end of the Younger Dryas period. There's a lot of dinos here. There was saber-toothed tigers here. There were the giant wolves. There were still cephalopods around. There was cheetahs, saber-toothed tigers, a giant elk, giant moose. Still had some of the more predatory kind of little velociraptors, that sort of thing around. Uh, they had to probably run down some pretty quick stuff and probably pretty large game. There was water buffalo, a bunch of peculiar old historic creatures. A lot of it big, and God only knows how quickly that stuff moved. And God only knows how strong it was. I mean, uh, I I don't think that, for one, if you were going to be going around trying to build something like these people, if you were a weaker species, you wouldn't build something stronger than you. For one, that makes no sense. It would beat you into the ground, subdue you, and take over your culture. So if there were some sort of a remnant species from some ancient culture, they'd probably still be inhabiting the ruins of that culture or be within the walls of those cultures, which they don't seem to be. No bones found. Um, I don't know if they've lived in some of those types of structures. To me, it seems like they've always been kind of in the woods. They've always kind of lived indigenously. I haven't, even with their own stories, with the exception of what Uncle Ong talked about, there wasn't really modernly anything that they did that was technologically advanced. So I don't know if that's even plausible. Uh, Phil, would you interview, please? The White Swan. Hey, that'd be cool. But I've never discussed any Angels Cane stuff with them. Possible they got it from someone else, I guess. Well, I do know that the cynocephali, some of the dog people, have become Christian. Supposedly they were converted by, St. Christopher himself, and that was a movement throughout their species, supposedly. So there's the potential that some of them are actually quite Christian. I don't know. I haven't been able to confirm that yet. Okay. World of Bigfoot. I grew up in the woods, but never spent any time on a farm. Yeah, I kind of was edge of town, and my woods were, further off. Okay, synthetic, I want to make sure I spelled it correctly. 100% believe the veracity of your oral traditions. Yeah, I'm just kind of wondering how some of that stuff fits in, too, actually. Because there are some peculiar cryptids from the Assyro-Babylonian stories themselves. They talk about hippogriffs, griffins, chimeras, and that sort of thing. They've got giant bird people. You know, they've got some peculiar stuff in their own cultures. And if there are 400,000 different species of potential human beings on the planet, they might just be more cryptids. You know, maybe modern science got it wrong. You know, maybe they're jumping out on that limb of theory a little too far. Could be that too. We don't know. We won't know until we either find something that states more directly what was going on instead of trying to idealize iconography, or we find some supporting evidence modernly that might give us a better clue. Because some of the representations in the ancient Syro-Babylonian culture definitely makes it appear as if some of those creatures were very large. You know, one of the kings, what was he, holding a lion, and the lion looks like a large dog in his hands instead of a lion. That means that depiction, if it's accurate, is representing something very large, not just large because it's kingly. Because if you notice, when you look at structures, you got a lot of big doors that are incredibly tall for people our size. So unless you're accommodating something going through that gate that's the size of a Trojan horse or a small building, why would you have a door that's absolutely huge? And even looking into the Bible stories, you get into Adam and Eve being 10 feet tall, most of the records, 15 feet in some of the texts, so they weren't small themselves. Might just be more species of ancient humans. That's kind of what's a lot of the older lore seems to suggest, is that a lot of what we consider giants were just more ancient species. Just like the giant that lays here. He had to have been 104 foot tall, somewhere in there, because he's pretty big sized. Just what you can see, just his hand is huge. And he's petrified rock, so he's in excess of, 80,000 years old? Because it takes that long for something to turn into rock, typically. And especially if it's getting kind of crystalline structures, 50 to 80,000 years. So 50,000 years, you've got something petrified. 80,000 years, it's growing rock, crystal structure in the rock. So that again puts giants back further. So maybe the stories in the history of the Syro-Babylonian culture actually go further back. There's too many questions, to be honest. Okay, synthetic. I am also familiar with the Vedic literature. I think it's been intentionally whitewashed and omitted from Western education. Yeah, I think you're very correct on that. And there are too many ancient texts around this world that are suggestive of all kinds of interactions. Not just, international trade at ground level with us. I mean, when you're finding coffee beans in Constantinople and chocolate in Egypt, and you're finding other stuff here from other cultures, like Ming Dynasty bowls here on the West Coast. You're finding stuff down in South America that may have been from Atlantis. There's a suggestion that we had cultures that traded quite extensively at one point with each other. If we're finding unusual items from different cultures, different timelines, there's a distinct possibility we were far more interactive with each other than history has been telling us. And then, the further you go back, that's still potentially the same thing that's been going on. Maybe as things have died out, they just stop trading with each other, and the ones that have survived just keep trading with each other and keep interacting with each other. And, there's a lot of history that we don't know. So there's a lot of stuff we kind of have to conjecture on to a point. Okay, band I viewed my first YouTube video with Graham Hancock and Van Kirkwick, Egyptian artifacts in granite. We can barely make now with our machinery, yeah, and diorite, which is harder than granite. And that is the one peculiar thing is Bigfoot here in this area likes to work with diorite, granite, basalt. Those are really tough rocks, and they're really hard rocks. You've got to have very strong hands to work those kind of stones, because all of those stones have like a hardness 8, 9, 10. You need like steel tools and diamonds to shape most of those stones. Okay. Synthetic, I've also never said it all. Sabe our lab created. Please understand that. Oh yeah, I get that. I haven't run across that kind of information. But God only knows what our government's been doing. I've heard plenty about them trying to capture them and having captured them and having done experiments on them. So I'm pretty sure if they haven't cloned them, which I've been told they haven't, they're trying to. If it isn't now, it will be soon, depending on how technology goes. Oh yeah, remember humor. Good idea. Okay, film. When in a quandary, believes Sasquatch may be able to move in time. Yeah, I don't know. Could be. I know there's some areas there where there are time anomalies, like that one hillside. I'm very curious about that, but I don't want to get too curious about it. Okay, synthetic, post-flood, content of the Old Testament only goes back 6,000 years. This is true. But the dates from Genesis have always been open for interpretation. Yeah, that's also very true, synthetic. Those dates in Genesis have been open to interpretation. And yeah, have you ever read the Corpus Hermeticum in conjunction with Genesis, or the John the First's rendition of Genesis in correlation with modern Genesis, Corpus Hermeticum, and yeah, his works? It's very interesting when you compare those three particular documents. Because they essentially all say the same thing. It's just a modern version of it plugs God in and Creator in more than was in the original Corpus Hermeticum. Corpus Hermeticum is actually kind of a dialectic on the planetary bodies in our solar system. It's talking about different planetoids. Talks about the idea of Creator, concept of the demiurge, the simulacra, being behind the veil. That whole concept is all throughout the Corpus Hermeticum, which is kind of reminiscent to what's going on in the Genesis version of it. So those two texts might be related in some way when you start looking at them, and especially when you start looking at pre-Socraterian philosophies like Zoroastrianism, that sort of thing, where they understand what an atom is without the nucleus in it. They understood nucleus. Well, they understood the electron and proton. They didn't get the concept of the nucleus. But that's 760 BCE was Xenos on the island. It created the Stoic school of thought about atoms, that sort of thing. So where did ancient people like that come up with concepts like that, and how did they know what they were? You know, was that individual reading an older text? Were they thinking about something? Were they hypothesizing about something? What kind of equipment were they using? Did they have some sort of way of looking at an atom? We don't know. So there's plenty of possibilities out there. Pillman, Sasquatch, and are they simply digital time or delete deleting time? It could be just that they move quicker than you can see. I don't know, because of the events that I've seen where they disappear, they're still sitting in the same spot. They're still crunching on stuff. It just looks like they're blanking themselves. Jedi mind trick out of your mind. You don't see them because they don't want you to see them. But they don't seem to go anywhere. They're physically still sitting right next to you. So I don't think they're blipping to another dimension. Because if you can hear them still chewing next to you and they're still physically audible, then they haven't gone anywhere. They're just doing something that makes you unable to perceive them, or they themselves are not perceivable because of something. They've matched their energy to light, or they've, you know, invaded your mind in some way to blank your mind. And that was kind of my grandmother's lyric thought on it, was that they have the ability to make you not see them, are the words that she always used. The Sabe people have the ability to make you think you don't see them. That's how she always said it. So there might be something to that old lore. But static, when they just turn into a ball of light and flash, who knows, maybe they're crossing dimensions. I haven't seen them do that. The only blue ball of light I've seen in association with anything was a dogman jumping down out of a tree, and it looked like he had a blue ball of light attached to his feet or around his feet or something. It was very peculiar looking, and only ever got to see it a couple of times. So, and at distance, it wasn't real sure what I was seeing. I just noticed the blue light and went, oh, aha. Looked at it with night vision goggles. Borrowed some from a friend of mine. Yeah, okay, I could see the thing jumping down. It looked like it had a ball of flame under its feet, but I don't know what it was. I don't think it was a piece of technology, though. Um, I think it was maybe more auric. But then I don't know. I have no idea. I think they are an older race who time traveled and interbred with us. Well, anything is possible. But, until we either sit down and have a conversation with these guys or in some way find, real documentable material on them or create it by going out and doing some research, we aren't going to have any portion of answers in those kind of directions. Okay, a world potentially part the veil by raising the vibration frequency, creating a portal. Takes more focus and energy than that. Yeah, I've never seen anything like that. But, if somebody's got that on video, which I think there are some unusual light incidences that are on video that, yeah, I've never seen myself, but who knows? What do you call a one-eyed dinosaur? Paul Bunyan was a dogman. Blue was a cephalopod. Cephalosaurus. Saurus Rex. Yeah, elephant skulls look like a cyclops, for instance. Sinus cavities open in them because of their trunk, so they don't look like they have a pair of eye sockets. Big, big open hole. So it might be some sort of creature like that with only one eye hole after the flesh is removed. Okay, synthetic. Modern science certainly got it wrong. Possibility. We don't always. Sometimes we run with too much theory and not enough evidence. Yeah, I would tend to agree with you. Synthetic. It's not because the science was poor, but because the science has been covered up. Yeah, I. That's a definite potential there. Oh, Phil, you're one-eyed dinosaur. Gotcha. All right. Okay. Who I sure I shouldn't tell a joke about the what is your dinosaur? Ah, yeah, there you go. That's a funny one. Everything was emphasized in the bygone era. Yeah, good old days. No kidding. I mean, just the trees from 100 years ago, 150 years ago. Sequoia trees are 30 feet thick, and then we don't even have 30 feet, 30-foot thick trees these days. I don't think anywhere hardly left. Maybe a few in China. Um, so we've also downsized our forests. So what's in our forests probably had to vamoose or downsize themselves, so to speak. Okay. All right. You're about Mitchell. Uh, hey, brother Eric. God loves you. Yeah, well, God loves you too. Hey, apparently PM of Canada resign. Oh, hey, cool. Yeah, Trudeau family's been in, what, 3 generations or something like that now? Build structure is dismantling. Yeah, that's the word that up north's falling apart pretty good. Yeah, unfortunately that's going to be the case. So probably going to be the case more than one. Okay. Synthetic, yeah, I'm familiar with the Corpus Hermeticum. I find it extremely fascinating. It's just difficult to compare Old Testament, oral tradition, Vedic, Gnostic literature, and make a coherent timeline. Yeah, I know the ideologies match, but the timelines don't always match. Um, and some of the ideologies might just be comparatives or descendants of. But when you think about, the original the original Aramaic texts, the Dead Sea Scrolls, that's the oldest rendition of the Bible that we have available. It most closely matches the King James Version of the Bible and the Halcyon Bible. But it doesn't match up too well with some of the others, except for the African Bible. And it was in Aramaic. So even the Corpus Hermeticum is in it's a Greek text. It's not even from that region. And then, if you take the Hexagia of the Catholic Church as actually being an accurate document concerning the history of the church, then you'll know that the original Bible was written 200 years roughly. The modern Bible, not the original text itself, but the modern rendition that the churches use. Wasn't written until about 200 AD, supposedly by a Benedictine monk named Origen. And he drew not only from Greek texts, but he also drew from the Aramaic. So he may have kind of pushed myth cycles together some. There's that possibility, trying to preserve the original intent. But then, you're dealing with a modern Bible, and it has, what, 64 chapters to it, and African Bible has 105 chapters, and I think there's like 120 or 130 in the Dead Sea Scrolls. Uh, and the church has taken a lot of information out of the Bible. Always has. As soon as it was written, within a few hundred years they started ripping it apart. They took out the Apocrypha of Mary, and they took out the Old Testament. They took out a whole bunch of other stuff, connected um, letters and whatnot that didn't fit their concepts of how they wanted to portray themselves as edicts of the religion. Somebody who tells you about the religion instead of teaches you to read, so you can read it yourself. Synthetic, some material slightly contradictory, and other parts are blatantly oppositional. Yeah, it's probably because of the timeline, because of the culture. Things don't always, always translate the same in languages. For instance, you know, some languages will have a difficulty with, distinguishing young woman from a harlot as a word, for instance, which is one of those things that comes up in Hebrew every once in a while. And or just not having an equatable phrase from one language to another, or understanding the finite implications of certain word sets may not be translatable from easily from one language to another. So conceptually some stuff may not match simply because of language barriers. Okay, World of Bigfoot Central, Squatch, and Ninja are both said to be able to cloud men's minds, and they can't be seen. Yeah, I noticed that too, and I happen to agree with you. Maybe it is some sort of practice, ability. Okay. Hey folks, don't forget to hit the like button. Oh, thank you guys. Thank you, Maine Mermaid. Really appreciate that. Okay. I'm not lurking though. I found I couldn't leave. It was just too interesting. Oh, that's a good thing. Yeah. That's true, Great Sky. Finally seeing a proper number of thumbs up here tonight. Yeah, that's true, Ben. Thank you guys. Really appreciate you. And I'm glad that you find my content interesting. I'm just trying to bring another avenue of thought into it. Maybe a little more history into it. And as I've always stated, I'm just trying to figure how much of my grandmother's lore actually equates to exactly what she said, or if it belongs to something else. So part of it for me is just discovering and trying to cross-correlate what I've been told with what I find. Some of it, a good portion of it, though, I don't have to cross-correlate because, I was just taken by a relative and gone, oh, this is where the urine lived, this is what they do. So, there's that end of it, which is something most of you've never had exposure to and never had a chance to be exposed to, because it's not part of the American culture at large. And it is something that's pretty prevalent in Native American culture. When elders and medicine people will take the younger folks out and go, hey, this is where Sabe lives, this is where the Bigfoot live, this is where these guys live, this is what they do. Don't go here, you can't hunt there, or be careful if you go over there. This is what you do to trade with them, this is what you do to avoid conflict. This is what you have to watch for in case they get annoyed at you. This is how to make amends to them. So, it's just a cultural difference. World, Bigfoot Central, Devil's Towers, an ancient tree, stump. Yeah, that's what a lot say. Uh, And it does kind of have suggestive rings on the top of it, which, peculiar. Hey, have you heard Bigfoot is derogatory to them? Might as well call them Bigfoot. Yeah, Sabe Bigfoot. It's a Native American name actually. Bigfoot was actually a chief's name, Chief Bigfoot. Um, so it's kind of a surname. So maybe that's why they find it offensive. You're calling them a Native American indigenous person's surname instead of their tribal name. Maybe that's why they might find it offensive in that area. Thought they just called us Wasichu, like normal. Okay, World of Bigfoot Central. I've climbed on Devil's Tower, and it does look like fossilized tree stump. Wow. Yeah. Personal experience. That says a lot. And to me, that's more valid than a distance or a picture or a thought or a theory. If somebody goes there and sees something that suggests to them a particular avenue might be correct, to me that has more validity because first-hand account. Okay. Matt, is there any truth to the Dogman legend? Oh yeah, they exist, and they're pretty much everywhere. There are just as many of them around as there are other Bigfoot. Hey Leona, with Bigfoot, I wonder about the Devil's Pile being out there, tree trunk. Yeah, right? Okay. This is being, I'm glad I didn't miss. Don't make me pray you away. Yeah, you're pretty good. No worries about it. What about Wendigo? Wendigo, they are a entity, as far as all the legends and lore about them say. They are something that steps into you when you start consuming human flesh. So it's something that takes over your personality, pushes it aside, pushes your soul away. Just like normal concept of possession, and you become, a ravenous eater of human flesh, and that becomes your state of being. There's also supposedly Wendigo, spelled with an I instead of an E, and they are supposedly all shamanistic people that are trained to deal with the Wendigo spirit, to cast it out, to destroy it, and to save people from its ravages, much like a modern priest does with possession. Hey, May Mermaid, thank you for your time. Please keep them coming. Your videos and your lives are incredible. I'm glad you like them. Thank you. I haven't seen that, but I don't want to either. That is, those are freaky. Yeah, okay, Phil. That's, yeah. Lots of peculiar things in this world. Oh, so I responded to Sauron about the tree stump, alien base camp, close encounter. I got erased. Uh-oh. Sorry about that, oh. Mike Ontario claimed to have recorded them. Ha! Yeah, occasionally they'll fart, belch, smack their lips, make yummy sounds. It's always really entertaining. Oh, and snore. That's another thing. Occasionally you'll find one that snores, and if they're sleeping during the day, you'll find them quite easily snoring away under some bush or between logs. I didn't see it race. It's right. Oh, okay. Yeah. Alright, well, it's been approximately 2.5 hours. And it looks like I've answered about all the questions that are pertinent. I hope a little bit of walkthrough on, the kinds of behaviors that you might expect out of various cryptids. Lauren, is a Wendigo same as a crawler? No, those are two different creatures. Crawlers are supposedly born the shape they are, and Wendigo are a person that becomes possessed, so they become, the walking undead, basically, that like to eat flesh. Ours. Crawlers. My grandmother thought that crawlers might be a part of the chrysalis people that, don't get treated well. So they go to the bad ways. They take up eating humans. But I'm not sure. I would have to either do more lore research, outside of my own culture, or try to address it another way. Synthetic, but I can see why someone would think that their appearance is similar. Yeah, they do have a similar appearance. Except I think crawler. Well, no, I think both Wendigo and crawlers have white deer-like eye shine. If I remember right, there's just one's going to have be really skinny and scrawny, and the other one's going to have torn flesh on it. The Wendigo's going to have cut, torn flesh, whereas the crawler is just incredibly emaciated and really pale looking. Alrighty, guys. So, again, I want to say thank you to all my steadfast people. I'm glad you're here. I'm glad you enjoyed the channel. I'm glad you enjoy my content. As soon as the weather starts to clear, hopefully I'll be able to get some more good stuff. I'm still working on trying to get down to a run down to Cottage Grove Lake and see if I can get some more, either the structures, because they usually have a lot of structures over the winter down there, or some more examples of, fishing or boats, or any other little thing that might pop up, tracks, maybe more pots or tools. That area has a lot of tools usually that show up too. It'd be nice to get a few more of those kind of examples for you guys. So hopefully, if the weather holds, I can get down there soon. Oh yeah, no problem, guys. I'm glad to offer my time. Thank you, Lauren. You're great. You too, Beaupart. Thank you. No, it's better that this sort of information gets utilized. The more we can understand these different things, the easier it will become to find them, the easier it'll be able to document them, and the easier we can make our time around them. If we can avoid bad interactions, that would be optimal, I would think. Anyway, guys, I think you're great. I really appreciate you. I'm happy for all the new subscribers. Really appreciate the fact that people are coming to my channel. Sorry it's a little slow going, but I kind of like to keep it real. What I see, what I record is what you get. I try not to overproduce it. I don't want that to be going on. I want this to be more raw footage so that you can see it for yourselves, experience it for yourselves, and make up your own mind directly without having any hype in the way, without having any music over the top of sounds, or anything that's going to pollute or distract. I'd rather just give you straight up what I get, because to me that's the most honest way of trying to document something, or trying to exemplify something, trying to show how it works, is just do it straight up. So thank you, everyone. Really appreciate you guys. And I'll probably do another Sunday live next week. I don't know if I'm going to do anything in the middle of this week. I've got a few more buildings to bounce through this week. I have probably got to deal with some tire issues. I got to deal with my dog going into surgery. That's all going to be in the next 2 weeks. So I may not be able to get a lot up, but I'm going to do what I can. Anyway, you guys have a great evening, and thank you for sharing some time with me tonight. Really appreciate you. And thank you for all the encouragement. And I'm glad that the information's useful and is interesting. Have a great rest of your weekend and have a great work week. Be safe. Take care of yourselves. Pray for each other. Be brothers and sisters. Have a good one.